Before we go any further today, I need to ask you a question that might feel uncomfortably personal. I want you to take a mental walk into your kitchen right now. Open your refrigerator. What is sitting on those shelves? Is there a container of white rice from 2 nights ago? A few links of breakfast sausage sitting in a plastic baggie? Maybe a bowl of cooked spinach or a plate of fried chicken that you were planning to pop into the microwave for a quick lunch today. Almost everyone watching this has done exactly that. I have done it. My colleagues have done it. We live in a world where being thrifty is a virtue. We hate to see food go to waste. We think we are being responsible parents or grandparents by saving every scrap. But listen to me very carefully. There are 4 specific, incredibly common foods currently sitting in American kitchens that appear completely innocent. However, when you subject them to a second round of heat, they undergo a chemical transformation. Slowly, week after week, year after year, these reheated staples create the perfect biological storm for one of the most aggressive and lethal forms of cancer known to modern science, pancreatic cancer. What is truly heartbreaking is that the people suffering from this are often the most well-intentioned. They are the ones trying to save money for their children's college funds. They are the ones trying to be efficient with their time. They aren't doing anything obviously wrong. They are simply unaware of a microscopic process that happens when heat meets leftovers. I am Dr. Sage Sr. Over the last 30 years of practicing medicine, I have sat across from countless patients who are in the prime of their lives. Men and women in their 50s and 60s, seemingly healthy, active in their communities, and devoted to their families. I have had to be the one to deliver a stage 4 pancreatic cancer diagnosis to people who thought they just had a bit of persistent back pain or a touch of indigestion. There is one specific question that haunts me. It is a question I have heard in varying forms from almost every single one of those patients. They look at me with tears in their eyes and ask, "Dr. Sage, why didn't anyone tell me this sooner?" That question is the reason I am speaking to you today. It is not because I want to fill your day with fear. Fear is useless without information. I am here because the answer to that patient's question is devastatingly simple. The things that kill us are often the things that are too close to see. They are hidden in our daily routines and our most basic habits. Today, I am going to pull back the curtain on those habits so that you have the chance that many of my patients wish they had years ago. We are going to look at 4 specific foods that are likely in your fridge right now, and I will explain exactly why heating them up a second time is a gamble you can no longer afford to take. To understand why your kitchen habits matter so much, you first have to understand the unique and terrifying nature of the organ we are talking about, the pancreas. In the medical community, we often refer to the pancreas as a black box. It is an organ that lives in total, absolute silence until it is pushed to the brink of collapse. Most of your organs have an alarm system. If your heart is struggling, it sends signals of chest pressure or shortness of breath. If your liver is in trouble, it turns your skin yellow and your eyes jaundiced. If your kidneys are failing, you feel sharp pain or notice immediate changes in your waist. But the pancreas is different. It is tucked deep inside your abdomen, nestled behind the stomach and surrounded by a complex network of other organs. It is perfectly hidden, both physically and symptomatically. The pancreas performs 2 critical jobs. It produces the enzymes that allow you to digest food, and it produces the insulin that regulates your blood sugar. It works tirelessly every time you take a bite of food, but the pancreas does not have pain receptors that tell you when it is being chemically irritated. It absorbs cellular damage in total silence. It accumulates the impact of poor habits for 10, 20, or 30 years without a single complaint. By the time a person begins to feel the symptoms of pancreatic trouble, the window for easy intervention has almost always closed. They might notice a dull, nagging ache in their mid-back that they mistake for a pulled muscle. They might notice they are losing weight without trying, or that they feel fatigued regardless of how much they sleep. In many cases, by the time these signs appear, the cancer has already progressed to its later stages. I need you to listen to this statistic, not to cause panic, but to understand the gravity of the situation. The 5-year survival rate for pancreatic cancer globally is approximately 12%. Let that sink in. Out of every 100 people diagnosed with this disease, only 12 will still be here 5 years later. This is why I tell my students and my patients that with the pancreas, treatment is a desperate backup plan. Prevention is the only real strategy that carries true weight. So, how does cancer begin in an organ that was designed to be so resilient? It rarely happens because of one single event. It is not like being struck by lightning. Instead, it is more like a dripping faucet in an old house. One drop doesn't do much. But if that faucet drips every day for 20 years, it will eventually rot the foundation of the entire building. When we talk about cancer, we are talking about DNA damage. Every time you ingest certain compounds, they enter your bloodstream and interact with your cells. Most of the time, your body's repair mechanisms fix the damage. But when you repeatedly introduce specific carcinogens, such as the ones created during the reheating of certain foods, the repair mechanisms eventually fail. A mutation occurs. A cell begins to divide uncontrollably, and because the pancreas is so quiet, that single mutated cell can become a colony, and that colony can become a tumor, all while you feel perfectly fine. The chemistry of the kitchen is the front line of this battle. We have been taught to worry about pesticides and air pollution, which are important, but we often ignore the chemical reactions we are triggering ourselves on our own stovetops and in our own microwaves. In the next few minutes, I am going to explain the chemistry of why a second round of heat changes the molecular structure of your food. I promise to keep it simple, but you must understand the why so that you can make the right choices for your family. Understanding this chemistry is the difference between living in fear and living with the power of knowledge. To truly grasp why we are having this conversation, I need to take you into the invisible world of molecular biology. I promise I will not make this feel like a high school chemistry class, but you deserve to know what is actually happening on your plate. When you cook a meal for the first time, you are using heat to transform raw ingredients into something digestible and flavorful. You are breaking down proteins, caramelizing sugars, and releasing nutrients. In most cases, if the food is fresh, this process is perfectly healthy. Your body is equipped with an incredible array of enzymes designed to process these heat-altered molecules. However, a dangerous shift occurs when that food is allowed to cool down and sit for several hours or days, and is then subjected to a second round of high heat. Think of a piece of food like a complex Lego castle. The first time you cook it, you build the castle. When it cools, the castle stays mostly intact. But when you reheat it, you aren't just warming it up. You are shaking that castle until the pieces begin to snap in ways they were never intended to. There are three specific things that happen during this second heating. First, the natural protective compounds in the food like vitamin C, antioxidants, and heat-sensitive enzymes were mostly destroyed during the first cook. This means that during the second cook, there is no chemical shield left to neutralize harmful reactions. Second, while the food is sitting in your refrigerator, even at cold temperatures, it is not frozen in time. Microscopic bacterial activity and enzymatic oxidation continue to happen slowly. Nitrates in the food begin to convert into nitrites. This is what I call the refrigerator effect. Your fridge acts like a slow-motion chemical laboratory, preparing the food to create toxins the moment it hits a heat source again. Finally, when you apply heat for the second time, especially in a microwave, you trigger the formation of specific compounds called nitrosamines and heterocyclic amines. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is part of the World Health Organization, has classified these compounds as Group 1 or Group 2 carcinogens. This means they are known or highly probable causes of cancer in humans. In clinical studies, these compounds have shown a terrifyingly high affinity for the cells of the pancreas. They don't just pass through your system, they seek out the DNA in your pancreatic tissue and cause insults or tiny breaks in the genetic code. Over time, these insults add up. This is the accumulation I mentioned earlier. It is a slow, silent, and invisible chemical erosion. Now let's look at the first group of foods where this process is most aggressive. In the United States, processed meats are a multi-billion-dollar staple of the national diet. I'm talking about hot dogs, breakfast sausages, deli ham, pepperoni, and those convenient pre-cooked bacon strips. We see them as easy protein sources. We pack them in our children's lunchboxes, and we fry them up for a quick Saturday morning breakfast. The problem begins long before the meat reaches your kitchen. To keep these meats pink, flavorful, and shelf-stable for weeks, manufacturers use a preservative called sodium nitrite. Now, the FDA regulates the amount of nitrites allowed in food, and in a single serving of freshly prepared meat, the risk is considered manageable by the body's detoxification systems. But the danger profile changes completely when you reheat these meats. Here is a scenario I see in American homes every day. A family has a barbecue on Sunday and has several leftover hot dogs or sausages. On Monday or Tuesday, those sausages are sliced up and thrown into a pan or a microwave to be freshened up for lunch. When you reheat processed meats that contain added nitrites, you are providing the thermal energy needed for those nitrites to bond with the secondary amines naturally present in the meat. This specific reaction creates nitrosamines. Unlike the original protein, nitrosamines are highly unstable molecules that thrive on damaging your cellular structure. I want to speak specifically about the microwave, which is how 90% of Americans reheat their food. Microwaves do not heat food evenly. They create hot spots where the temperature can spike far higher than the surrounding areas. In these microscopic hot spots, the concentration of nitrosamines can skyrocket in just 60 seconds. If you see your sausage or bacon curling, charring, or popping in the microwave, that is a visual sign of a violent chemical reaction. You are essentially creating a concentrated dose of DNA-damaging compounds. The link between processed meat consumption and pancreatic cancer is one of the most well-documented in nutritional oncology. A major study involving over 190,000 people found that those who consumed the most processed meats had a 67% higher risk of pancreatic cancer compared to those who consumed the least. Now, I am a realist. I know that sausages and ham are part of our culture, but here is the Dr. Sage Senior rule. If you are going to eat processed meats, cook them once and eat them immediately. If they go into the refrigerator as leftovers, do not heat them again. It is far better to eat a cold slice of ham in a sandwich than to fry it or microwave it into a chemical hazard. And for those of you with grandchildren, please hear me. A child's pancreas is still developing. Their ability to repair DNA damage is high, but their organs are smaller and more sensitive to chemical concentration. Do not make it a habit to give them reheated hot dogs or nuked sausages just because it is fast. That fast meal is an investment in a future health crisis that we want to avoid at all costs. Now we come to the part of this discussion that almost always shocks my patients the most. We have been told our entire lives to eat more greens. We are told that vegetables are the ultimate shield against disease, and in their fresh, properly prepared state, that is absolutely true. But there is a hidden paradox here. The very same superfoods that protect your heart can become a significant burden on your pancreas if they are mishandled in the kitchen. I am talking specifically about nitrate-rich vegetables. In the American diet, this includes spinach, kale, beets, celery, carrots, and various types of lettuce. These plants naturally absorb nitrates from the soil. When you eat them fresh or freshly cooked, these nitrates are wonderful. They convert into nitric oxide in your body, which relaxes your blood vessels and lowers your blood pressure. However, the chemistry changes the moment those cooked vegetables hit the refrigerator. Let's say you made a large side of sautéed spinach or a healthy vegetable soup for dinner on Monday. You have a bowl left over, so you put it in a Tupperware container and refrigerate it. While that container sits in your fridge, a biological process called reduction begins. Naturally occurring bacteria and enzymes in the pre-cooked vegetables start to convert those healthy nitrates into nitrites. This isn't a sign that the food is spoiled in the traditional sense. It won't smell bad or look different. It is a silent, microscopic shift. The real danger occurs when you take that bowl of spinach or soup out the next day and put it in the microwave. The heat acts as a catalyst. It takes those newly formed nitrites and encourages them to bond with amino acids, creating the same nitrosamines we discussed earlier in relation to processed meats. By reheating your greens, you are effectively taking a health food and turning it into a source of carcinogenic stress. This is particularly hard on the pancreas because it is the organ responsible for neutralizing the oxidative stress that occurs during digestion. When you flood your system with reheated nitrites, you are forcing your pancreas to work overtime to manage a chemical load it was never meant to handle. I see this often with meal preppers in the U.S. People who spend their Sundays cooking huge batches of kale or spinach to eat throughout the week. While their intention is to be healthy, the daily reheating of those greens is creating a cumulative toxic effect. So what is the solution? Does this mean you have to throw away leftover vegetables? Not necessarily. I call this the salad secret. If you have leftover cooked vegetables, eat them cold. Add them to a cold grain bowl, put them in a wrap, or toss them into a salad. The chemical conversion to nitrosamines is primarily triggered by the second application of heat. If you eat them cold or at room temperature, you avoid the most dangerous part of the reaction. Of course, the best option is to only cook the amount of vegetables you plan to eat for that specific meal. Your pancreas will thank you for the extra 20 minutes of prep time. I want to pause here for a moment. I know that for many of you this information feels overwhelming. You might be looking at your refrigerator right now with a sense of anxiety. Please take a deep breath. My goal is not to make your kitchen feel like a minefield. My goal is to give you the map to navigate it safely. In my 30 years of practice, I have realized that the American medical system is world-class at treating disease once it has arrived, but we are often far too quiet about how to prevent it from knocking on the door in the first place. We spend billions on chemotherapy and surgical robots, but very little on educating families about the chemistry of their dinner plates. Because I cannot sit down in the kitchen with each and every one of you, I have compiled my 3 decades of clinical observations and research into a resource specifically for this stage of life. It is an ebook titled Thriving After 50: The Hidden Warning Signs. This isn't a dry, heavy medical textbook. It is a practical guide written in plain English. It covers the subtle signals your body sends when your pancreas, liver, or heart is struggling, signs that are often dismissed as just getting older. It also includes the daily kitchen protocols that I personally use in my own home to minimize toxin exposure. If you want to dive deeper into these strategies and take a proactive stance on your longevity, you can find the link in the description below or visit my website at drsagensenior.com. This information is the legacy I want to leave for my patients and for you. We often think that our health is determined by our genetics, but your genetics are merely the blueprint. Your daily habits, what you eat, and what you keep are the builders that actually construct your future. Now let's move on to the third category, which involves an ingredient that is used in almost every American household, often in the most dangerous way possible. We are going to talk about the hidden crisis of oxidized oils. When we think about the American diet, it is impossible to ignore the role of fried foods, whether it is fried chicken from the deli, a side of French fries, or those delicious spring rolls from your favorite takeout place. Deep frying is part of our culinary landscape. But the danger I want to discuss today isn't about the calories or the cholesterol. It is about a process called lipid oxidation. In many American households, there is a common habit of reusing oil. Perhaps you fried some fish on Friday and kept the oil in the pan to fry something else on Saturday. Or, more commonly, you have leftovers that were deep fried and you want to reheat them to get that crispy texture back. You might put them back into a pan with a little more oil, or as many do, blast them in the microwave or an air fryer. Here is what is happening at a molecular level. Every cooking oil has a specific smoke point. When you heat oil for the first time, you begin to break down its chemical bonds. This creates a cascade of toxic byproducts, including acrolein, acrylamides, and a group of chemicals known as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAH. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has flagged these compounds as being genotoxic. This means they don't just irritate your stomach, they actually invade your cells and damage your DNA. Now here is the critical part. When you reheat fried food or reuse oil, the oxidation process does not start over from zero. It continues from where it left off, but at a much faster rate. Oil that has been heated once is already chemically unstable. Reheating it for a second time causes it to reach its threshold of toxicity much faster and at lower temperatures. If you are using a microwave to reheat fried foods, you are creating intense pockets of heat that accelerate the production of these DNA-damaging compounds. The pancreas is incredibly sensitive to these oxidized fats. Unlike the liver, which has a robust system for filtering out certain toxins, the pancreas is often the first responder to the digestive byproduct of these degraded oils. Frequent exposure to these oxidized compounds leads to chronic cellular stress, which is a primary driver of the mutations that lead to pancreatic cancer. My advice on this is very firm. If you cook with oil, use it once and dispose of it. Never top off old oil with new oil. And when it comes to fried leftovers, if they cannot be enjoyed cold, it is better to let them go. Reheating them to achieve that crunch is essentially a process of saturating your meal with concentrated free radicals. Your long-term health is worth more than the price of a takeout side dish. We now arrive at the fourth and final food, and this one is perhaps the most deceptive of all. It is a staple in millions of homes: Rice. It seems so simple, so clean, and so safe. But rice carries a secret that most Americans are never taught. In its raw state, rice often contains the spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. Now here is the terrifying part. These spores are designed for survival. They can withstand the boiling temperatures used to cook the rice. When the rice is finished cooking and begins to cool down at room temperature, these spores wake up. They begin to multiply, and as they grow, they produce a specific type of toxin. Most people believe that if they just reheat the rice until it is steaming hot, they will kill any bacteria and make it safe. This is a dangerous misconception. While the heat might kill the live bacteria, it does not destroy the toxins they have already produced. Those toxins are heat-stable, they are invisible, they have no smell, and they cannot be cooked out. I see a very common habit in families where a large pot of rice is made in the morning and kept on the warm setting of a rice cooker all day. Or rice is left on the counter for hours before being put in the fridge. This creates a perfect incubator for toxins. When you eat this reheated rice, these toxins can cause low-level inflammation in your digestive tract. You might not get full-blown food poisoning every time. You might just feel a little bloated or off. But remember what we discussed about the pancreas. It responds to chronic, low-level inflammation. If you are subjecting your system to these bacterial toxins several times a month for 20 years, you are creating a state of permanent chemical friction in your gut and your pancreas. This chronic inflammation is a well-known gateway to cancer. It keeps the immune system distracted and creates an environment where mutated cells can thrive. To handle rice safely, follow the 1-hour rule. After cooking, if you aren't going to eat it immediately, cool it down and get it into the refrigerator within 1 hour. Never leave it on the counter to cool off for the afternoon. Once refrigerated, do not keep it for more than 24 hours. And when you do reheat it, do it only once. And ensure it is piping hot all the way through. If you find yourself reheating the same container of rice for the second or third time, you are playing a dangerous game with your internal health. As we wrap up our time together today, I want to bring this back to the why. Why did I tell you about the sausages, the spinach, the oils, and the rice? Why did I share the heartbreaking survival statistics of the pancreas? It is because in my 30 years as a doctor, I have realized that the most expensive thing in the world is not a fancy car or a big house. The most expensive thing in the world is the information you didn't have when you still had time to use it. We live in a culture that prizes not being wasteful. We were raised to clean our plates and save our leftovers. But I want you to reconsider what waste really means. If you save a bowl of rice or a couple of sausages and it costs you $5 but increases your risk of a disease that has an 88% fatality rate, you aren't being thrifty. You are making a very poor trade. The real waste is a life cut short at 60 when it could have lasted until 90. The real waste is a grandfather who isn't there to see his granddaughter walk down the aisle because of a habit involving a microwave and some leftover greens. I want to give you 3 simple steps to start today. First, do a fridge audit. If there is anything in there that falls into these 4 categories and has been there for more than a day, let it go. Second, change your cooking volume. Cook only what you need for that meal. It takes a little more planning, but it removes the temptation to reheat. Third, share this knowledge. I often tell my patients that the gatekeeper of a family's health isn't the doctor, it's the person who controls the kitchen. If you are the one who does the cooking, you have more power over your family's longevity than any prescription I could ever write. If this information has opened your eyes, I encourage you to subscribe and stay with me. Next week, I am going to be talking about 5 so-called health foods that are currently being marketed to seniors but are actually accelerating the aging process in your joints and brain. Please, share this video with someone you love. Send it to your children who are busy raising your grandkids. Send it to your friends who are trying to stay healthy in their golden years. Knowledge is the only thing that grows when you share it, and in this case, it might just save a life. I am Dr. Sage Sr. Thank you for trusting me with your time today. Take care of your kitchen, take care of your pancreas, and most importantly, take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next video.